now, but he's really a Tennessee guy. You know what I mean? And he had like a year-long installation in Chattanooga a few years ago called like Wayne's World, and it was just this whole crazy thing. But yeah, he's a super interesting dude, and it was really fun to talk to him on the podcast. So we talked to artists and fighters, and we talked to fighters who make art or write, and we talked to artists who also practice martial arts in one way or another. So we basically end up having these discussions on the podcast. Mostly they're about like creativity and about growth and things like that, but through these lenses of what we always talk about, like, you know, you got to fight if you want to make great art. And when you see great fighting, it ultimately is a work of art. You know what I mean? So there's all this overlap. And I think one of the most fun things about the podcast too is the fact that my co-host Brian and I sort of are guys who are sort of more in the music and art world in Nashville. But every time we'd meet up with each other, we just want to talk about fights. We'd say, did you see the fights? Who's going to win this fight? What's going on with the fights? And so finally we thought, well, we should do this podcast. And from that, we've found that there's lots and lots of people who see the overlap of those two things and see them as very much, you know, the same kind of thing, very much like what we saw a couple of weeks ago, like on the ESPN Bruce Lee documentary. It was like, so, right. I mean, and there's a guy, one of the advisors for the documentary, a guy named Matthew Polly, recently wrote like the definitive Bruce Lee book called Bruce Lee: A Life. And he's been on the podcast a couple of times. And so that's the kind of thing we do there. And any of y'all would be welcome to come on soon. I think you've had Phoenix Carnivale on one of these before. She's been on the podcast before, and she's going to come back next week. She'll be our guest next week. We didn't do one this week because Brian got a gig doing some drone photography for a film job. So he's actually like in an RV, like driving around the Southeast right now, trying to stay quarantined in his RV while he's shooting this film. But he'll be back next week, and we'll talk to Phoenix.
Is that projects for an NBA player, right? Is that the story behind that?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't really know that.
I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, it's about a guy who actually, how does it work? I think the guy went to school in Memphis, and so he's going to Memphis to shoot some stuff there. But then he's also going to go to South Carolina, which is where the basketball player is originally from, and shoot some stuff there. So he's basically sort of following the film crew, is like running to all these places to do interviews and stuff. And then Brian comes in behind him and, like, you know, gets a drone shot of the basketball gym and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Super cool. And I hope, will you please get Chuck Minhall on as a repeat guest, because he was, did you read his piece back in the Ringer today?
Is he affiliated with the Ringer now, or was that just a one-off?
Before, he was like more of like not, you know, all the time.
He writes more of a writes occasionally, but he's not. I was hoping he'd get back in terms of even doing a podcast or something. So.
I know. So I will tell everyone, if the definitive text on Fight Island, he goes through how we got there, and with the clever Mindall, you know, figurative language and little side eye, a few things that I thought was interesting about, like the octagon on the beach, which is of course in 100 degrees will never be used, but it's fun. But thanks, Joe. Kyle, why don't you chime in?
I'll give a short overview. I'm a professor of sociology at SUNY Brockport, so up in near Rochester, New York. And my research is around physical practice and meaning making. And in particular, I study people who train in mixed martial arts and the stories they tell in the gym, what the allure is of participating in the practice, how that overlaps with questions of masculinity, questions of what we're doing in this world, just general trying to make sense of what's going on, what exchanging pain and interacting in a way that we don't in other areas of our life can actually open up. So trying to make that connection between the physical experience and storytelling. And then another area of my research is related to sports and politics. So how politicians like to use sports. And in that area, I usually research the NBA, but there's been some really fascinating overlap with MMA. So Nancy and I co-authored something for the Society pages a few weeks ago. But yeah, that's kind of, I can't remember how we met. I think I posted something on Twitter about an article I published and you sent me a message, right?
Yeah, I think
maybe like an MMA piece.
Yes.
Exactly. But yeah, I've been following along as Nancy and Tanisha run this series and trying to stop by whenever possible. So it's been fun.
Kyle, I've been telling my husband that article we wrote,
Mhm.
we were a little critical of the UFC coming back. That was in Florida.
Mhm.
But I said, wow, well, it looks like they listened to us because they got their practices better. I'm just kidding, as you guys know, but who knows? Took it, and then it looked like they were much more stringent and protocol in Vegas. And now I'm actually glad they're getting the hell out of our country. I don't know, because I just don't. If they really need a really rock solid bubble,
Yeah.
into Fight Island, but
I feel like the safety and the testing has gone up, but in terms of thinking about the story it's telling or the symbolism, still, I feel like it's still pretty poor. Just in terms of, Dana White still is up there, not wearing a mask, refusing to talk about testing, even if they are actually doing a better job with testing, pushing ahead no matter what, celebrating the UFC returning versus other sports and making it seem like other sports are weak for taking protocol seriously. So it's still this kind of blustery, let's not worry about this virus. If you do worry, you're just soft, right? So even though I feel like there's been some improvement, but it's still like it's still the wrong model for how we approach things.
yeah.
So but yeah, I'm still watching, so I'm still a hypocrite.
Well, I'm putting a pin on that. Delve into Fight Island. We're gonna delve in. Scott, who we went to high school, and Scott, would you ever think that I'd be this combat sports person when we were in high school?
I think there's some things about a lot of us that, where we came from and some of the ability we had and some of the background and the support we had. I think that there were a number of us, and you probably at the top of that list, or very close to it, that had the ability to kind of do whatever you want, kind of call your own shot. Does it surprise me? No, I think it's great the way it's circled back. But no, I mean, very, very little surprises me, but I'm definitely happy to be sitting in this position with you. It's great.
Oh, no, isn't it great? And well, Scott, it was funny. We were just chatting that I was voted, I was a big nerd, you guys. I was voted most academic, you want to be voted most successful or likely to be successful. You don't want to be most academic. But Scott told me he had a bookie in high school. So we're going to go to that story. And then we're going to talk about the betting odds too.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Was kind of talking to some of my friends about looking for some new betting sites and kind of seeing what's out there. And, just kind of talking. He's like, one of my friends was like, oh, I use a bookie. And I'm like, how do I kind of had this experience once. I had a bookie in high school and I was a freshman. I was a freshman in high school. And we had this sandwich shop by our house called Grinders. It's a local little sandwich shop, man. Great. They're still around in Columbus. And they're great. They're great sandwiches. So I walk in there one day to go get a sandwich, and I don't know how it came about. A couple of just dudes sitting there, and guys like we started talking about sports. He's like, "Well, I'm a bookie," and so here's your call sign when you come in. So my name was SS Sailor. So every time I would call in, I would SS Sailor. I'd call in this bet. So eventually, it was later in high school, end of junior year, beginning of senior year, like sometime in the summer, my mom called me because I kept coming home with all this shit, shoes and clothes and just all, everything, just all kinds of stuff. So I got caught, using a bookie. I was 17, 18 years old. It was great. So yeah, that was my first experience with betting on sports. So.
You said you got caught. It was a little like, yeah. So
got caught. I had too much stuff. I worked at the
finish line
at $4.25 an hour. I had no business bringing home what I was bringing home. She knew something was up.
And you were making that much money at 7. You were guessing. You were winning.
You were. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was doing all right.
And you didn't gamble until you were 21.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe you. All right, so we'll get to that. Atticus, my alum. How are you?
I'm good. Still in rural Oregon. So not a lot has changed other than allergies are marginally better.
Got it.
Yeah.
You know what? But you are our college student that we can ask questions. I know from my perspective as a professor, same with Tanisha and Kyle, about what's going on, you were gonna be in an apartment in DC.
Yes. My housing got canceled, and that's the reason I wasn't able to make the Muhammad Ali one, because I was in like a mad scramble to try and grab an apartment before they all got gobbled up, which I luckily did.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you. That's like part 3 is kind of, I really like to talk. I don't know, Kyle, we've talked about this about college sports and the college experience, because I know that that's going to be very different. And we will delve into that. So your boots on the ground. All right, Tanisha, just bring us home, and, maybe we'll give them a little taste of what we're working on too.
Yeah, we're working on cool stuff. So I'm Tanisha. I recently just relocated to Las Vegas. So I'm technically in Henderson, so I'm stoked. I've made it. It took entirely far too long and stress related, but I'm here and it's fine. My background's in traditional entertainment, media and radio production, stuff like that. And then I got my PhD in media psychology because I realized I hated the entertainment industry. It just has its own toxic environment, and that there was a hell of a lot more to what's going on besides all of the shit in the buildings that surrounds us. So I started getting fascinated with how we make meaning and the relationship that we have associated with media and technology, and how, as we grow as humans, how does media and technology grow kind of alongside that? And so I've been working a lot as an emerging media consultant and doing marketing communications to try and connect those dots between culture and conversation, how brands can be a part of that, working with community management. Because I hated psychology when I was in undergrad and in school, but I realized all that means is we're understanding people. We're all in the people business. And so it behooves all of us to kind of understand the relationships we have with ourselves, what that means. And where that intersects with sports is now really my jam, because I grew up playing sports, was a student athlete, played everything that they let me do. And so now having this psychology perspective, I like to kind of coin myself as that professional 1-2 punch of art and science. So where media innovation and science research kind of collides, and being able to connect those dots. So meeting all of you guys and Nancy's first, and getting integrated in this space with writing and fighting, it's not only totally my jam, but it's stuff that we're looking to grow and find more platforms to put this stuff out there. Because I think some of the conversations we've been having on these platforms has been extremely rich and insightful, and I keep getting blown up, and I know Nancy is as well, about more ways that we can publish this and get more eyes and scenes behind it. So yeah, it's kind of like a little teaser of stuff that we're trying to develop right now, but I'm always super stoked to meet new folks. And I think, Joe, this is the first time that we've had a chance to speak,
I think so.
live, real time like this and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Can I ask 2 follow-ups?
Please.
So do you have particular ideas about what space you want to go in with, or what direction you want to go with this? Is it going to be still putting out kind of YouTube, big Zoom conversations, or more targeted and narrow? Like what are some of your ideas?
I think it's the way that this has started in being a social media content series, because it started, obviously like within Nancy's space at American University. And while I teach at Fielding Graduate University in the psych department, teaching community psych and media psych, this has started as a very academic platform, but we've seen that there is, especially given right now in the last 6 months of this year, or 7, that there's so much relearning that we have to do. And if we have this passion that's mutual for the sports space and combat sports culture, there's a lot we can learn from that if we pull it out from just strictly academia and put it into more of a structured format. So yeah, we're thinking sky's the limit, but it's definitely, if it wants to live in the digital space first and then grow larger, all for that. More eyes, the better. But as long as it's something that I think it's authentic and leads to more audiences and just getting awareness and being true to this space, that's I think our main goal.
Mm-hmm.
And to give you an idea of our next project we're working on, last Saturday, 4th of July, Tanisha and I interviewed an inmate who's serving life in the Mississippi State Penitentiary. Parchment
Unit 29. If you haven't heard of Unit 29, look it up.
29.
Yeah.
And it was obviously it's illegal to do it, but that's part of the prison system, is that he was able to smuggle a phone. But he has been there since was 18 and is a trained boxing aficionado. Like, he trains the other inmates, and he's a writer. He's published 8 books. And so we can't wait to go into his story and how he shifted this. And, you know, he's obviously advocating for parole reform. When in Mississippi, if you are convicted for life at 18, you are not up for parole until you're 65.
Wow.
So you can do a crime at 50 and you only have 15 years, so, you know, parole. So anyway, so it's been interesting. It was quite a thing to be talking to someone when they're in a maximum security prison. And yeah, so we're getting some contacts. We're really, I was saying I need to talk to Brian because we're adding more context to this one, in terms of getting information about the prison and other things. So writing and fighting and prison
Yeah.
all goes hand
It's
in hand.
amazing.
So, so you guys, I'm going to put this question out there. Please jump in, or even just maybe raise your hand. Who thought Fight Island was really going to work?
Oh yeah. I thought.
Oh, so 2 out of 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends what you mean by work. You mean
Right.
like
Define work.
yeah.
Oh, you're right. Okay. That it was an actual, it would be something that would come to fruition.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's not Fight Island,
no.
right? So
No. This is another question. Well, that's a question. Do you think that when Dana White announced Fight Island, I think that was in early April when he did it. It was right around the time that Khabib had dropped out. Do you think he knew that Yas Island would be Fight Island? Or
100%. I do.
you think?
all right, Scott first, and then let's hear some other. You do?
Yeah. I've been around these Middle Eastern guys. I have a lot of exposure to the Middle East. I've been around it since a very young age. My family has done most of their business in Saudi and around that area. I'm familiar with Abu Dhabi when it was just a speck on the map. These guys are different animals. When you think you've been around somebody who is wealthy, this is something completely different. So the phone call I'm sure he got was a phone call saying, I've got every resource you could possibly imagine, make it work. And that was that. I think it was something that happened very quickly, but I think it was 100% predetermined. He knew exactly what it was.
Got it. Does anyone else have? So why not say Abu Dhabi?
That's not as attractive as Island. From even like marketing standpoint, like we think fight, like he said, Fight Island. I immediately thought like palm trees on the sand, like fucking sand crabs coming out and fight. Like that's Island, right? Like he's, you know, very much like 45, his best friend, of like reframing and redefining things that suits his own narrative. So,
but don't you think that's giving? I feel like that's giving him too much credit. I don't think the UFC has showed that type of marketing creativity ever. I feel like he said Fight Island and then he stumbled into people getting excited. I think he just said it because he just threw that word out there. People got excited. They ran with it for a bit. Abu Dhabi was always an option and it ended up being that way. But I feel like they kind of stumbled into something people got excited about rather than like, I just don't know if we have examples of him being that clever, right? Is that, I don't know. Maybe I'm underselling his ability, but.
No, I think you're probably gone to something for sure. But like after I think that came out and the collective excitement that so many people got about it, drawing up what this was, that promo they put out to promote 251 that showed up in the 2 cards or whatever, it was the most self-masturbatory thing I've ever seen in my life. Like I absolutely hated that thing. I was like, are you serious? Because it's just threw so much shade on every other organization as if they don't talk to health professionals and as if they don't want to make money. Like he's some pioneer in this. Like, are you kidding me? But that promo, I just absolutely hated. But you're right. I think he probably did maybe fall into this and didn't, or based on a phone call or a text that he got during Yas Island. But the way that I'll see what it looks like tomorrow. I haven't seen any of the weigh-ins or stuff that happened today. So I haven't seen anything aesthetically about like what this looks like. I just listened to John Anik on Luke Thomas the other day, and he was saying it is at least controlled environment for like air conditioning and stuff like that, you know, like I knew that was a concern. But he's probably not as smart as he thinks he is, but
for sure.
He's the tall stack at the poker table. Right? When you're playing ahead from that far, it's you know, I mean, what risks do you really have to take?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I find this interesting because I actually did. This is what a nerd I am. I have these quotes about. Oh, sorry. Here about when Fight Island was first talked about. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
I have a theory. All right, and maybe I've been watching too much true crime because I've been doing that lately. I think that Yas Island came about when Abu Dhabi screwed up because they sent Khabib there thinking that that fight was going to take place in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they let Khabib leave. Because if you look at some of these quotes, you know, in March 16th, we're postponing the next 3 events. It will still happen. And then March 19th, we will fight this thing, you know, that this whole kind of. And then on March 19th is when Khabib says they're moving from UFC 249 to New York to Abu Dhabi. Makes every sense, said his trainer. You know, so that. And then March 30th, it's reported that he flew over there the March 19th or 20th. So he was already there during this statement of when he was talking about we're going to make this work. And then something happens. I don't know if it was his father being sick and he knew about that, or he didn't know. Maybe Abu Dhabi, he realized this isn't going to work. I think Abu Dhabi came back, and I don't have my quotes yet and said, here, I'll stop sharing. I think Abu Dhabi is like, look, this didn't work out. We let Khabib leave, but we will allow our country, we'll figure out how people can come from all these different international countries, and we'll make it work. What do you guys think about that theory?
Well, I think it also goes along with the UFC giving less information rather than more, right? So if that's when Abu Dhabi came about, there was no reason for Dana White to share that with anyone, because he was trying to avoid regulation rather than work with regulation, as we see other leagues doing. So if they started to plan it then, it's great to have people paying attention to some imaginary island off in the Caribbean instead of focusing on United Emirates, right? So it makes sense that you could draw that timeline back there, and he would have no interest in sharing rather than just saying, don't worry about it, and kind of taking that blustery approach of moving ahead.
Yeah. No, does anyone else have any thoughts about this? Have you guys, go ahead, Atticus.
I think yesterday an article came out saying that the Abu Dhabi government is actually covering, and I think it's just the city rather than the whole country, but that the government is covering every single production cost, including housing, including food, including renting out the airplanes to fly fighters from Vegas to Abu Dhabi. Given that, I feel like the UFC had to know pretty far ahead of time. Yeah. I don't think this is not just a situation where the UFC is being held in Abu Dhabi. This is a situation where Abu Dhabi is trying to use the UFC in some way. And Kareem Zidane, I think he writes for Bloody Elbow. He might write for MMA Fighting. He writes about like the international politics of MMA.
Yeah.
He wrote a really interesting article about how Abu Dhabi and a lot of Gulf states use sports washing to kind of normalize and cover up some of their atrocities. And I think this is that's pretty much where this is. And I think the UFC has known about this for a while.
Yeah.
And they've also, and it's such a perfect example of how the UFC operates, because they've used this narrative to get the fighters to be thankful, right? Rather than to push for more pay, saying, look, we're able to keep events going when other places are not. We have to spend all this money to allow it to occur. Of course, we can't open our banks to pay you what you deserve. But then you learn later they're actually making money and they're not paying for the cost of the flights. They're not paying to build the stadium. They're not paying for any of these things. So it's pretty shady all around. It's pretty shady. The more information, the shadier it gets. Not to be too cynical about it.
Coming
but
from my background, that's absolutely no surprise with these guys. And when you think about the expense they're incurring and all of that, okay, the one thing that, and just from having it here in my soul, living it, seeing it since I've been very, very young, this is nothing.
Yeah.
This is nothing to them. It's they're not even going to know it's gone. Like, I think I've got change in my drawer over here. I don't even know it's there. It's the same thing. So for them to do this, it's, you know, like you said, I mean, it could be a little bit of washing or westernizing to try to bring themselves up to speed. I mean, yeah, I mean, do you have your atrocities and things that are there that are so far off the radar that they're trying to cut? Maybe. But as far as financing this deal, it means nothing to them. And this is, you know, it's kind of like watching Lionheart. And, you know, I mean, Van Damme shows up in a backyard to fight somebody in front of all the rich people. It's the same exact thing. This is no different. You know, just on a little bit of a bigger scale. So
Reminding me in that regard about like the WWE and Vince McMahon's deal with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And that completely cover up like some of the stories that have been coming out from those couple events that they've had. Insane. Like folks, you know, like confident people at the saying, like, or informants rather, than like, we were on the plane, they put us off. Like a lot of scary stories have been coming out about those recent experiences. But we know that at least between those families, at least there's a lot of ties and no real secret about accepting blood money, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard about the different things, activities that you can do on Yas Island? I was watching Kevin Iole, and he was saying how they have a race car track there that fighters can go on. They've got an amusement park, golf course.
we've got Ferrari World.
Which is that
You've got the F1 course or the F1 track at Yas Marina. It's all there.
So
It's a playground. The Louvre is right up the street.
yeah,
Like, I mean, it's insanity.
it's insanity.
It's insanity. And it's just, yeah, it's crazy.
And Scott, knowing that you are in Orlando, we're going to get into this because I feel like that bubble is looking better than the Disney bubble for the MLS and NBA. What do you think?
Yeah, they're off to a rough start. You know, I mean, the obviously they didn't think a whole lot of it through. You know, the NBA clearly, I mean, all the players are not going to stay anywhere near the bubble. It's a complete crap show here to begin with. I mean, with social distancing and masks and whatever else. So, yeah, I mean, apparently the diet that they're giving them is like they're comparing it to Fyre Fest. It's just absolutely hysterical. Like what's going on. I mean, but it's typical. I'm not sure what I live this madness every day. Like I was talking to Nancy about it. I don't leave. Like I don't go anywhere. It's nowhere. So I'm going to we haven't left the house. I'm going to a drive-through zoo tomorrow. Like where you drive through it, you don't get out of your car, and then I'm coming home.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, I mean, what a mess it is. Yeah.
Too. I don't know if you guys have been following MLS. That started this week in the Disney bubble, and I believe that Dallas had to withdraw because 11 or 10 players and a coach were positive. I think that Nashville weren't able to leave, or they might have to drop out. Already 2 games or 3 games have been postponed. It's not really the way you want to start a tournament, you know, and knowing that NBA is coming at the end of the month, it'll be interesting. I think that the NBA is looking at an auxiliary site in Chicago, from what I've heard. But, you know, we've talked about this, Kyle, with sports, you know, the push for sports to be open. I actually think that if you're going to do it again, the UFC was somewhat feasible. But there's just so many people involved in team sports.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and you can see with the UFC, if one fighter drops out, it's possible to insert another fighter and still have a match. You can't do that in other sports. If LeBron James gets sick, you can't insert another player and just say it went through as planned. It's a different type of event. So
Right, 'cause we're not talking about like tearing your ACL in like a game one, right? Like we're talking about a much more contagious, deadly virus. You know what I mean? So it's like those are conversations that I keep hearing people have, like in your mainstream, first take, first things first, get up, ESPN stuff. But because they're like, okay, well, is there an asterisk then on the NBA season? Like if I'm a Clippers fan, right? And it's like, of course, the year we're favored, there's a fucking global pandemic. It all stops. But it's like, yes, there would be, even if there was a Clippers win or if Milwaukee, whoever, it doesn't matter. Like to me, because yes, for your point, like if LeBron got sick, then
probably sweeps through the whole team too.
The entire team, right? Or would they even hide that LeBron got sick just to, not make everybody, scared or worried or stuff like that? Like those are questions that I have far too much little faith in humanity, even being.
Hey, Tanisha, I got a question for you. Let's say the Clippers manage to pull it off and win the whole deal. They get the trophy, right? You get a T-shirt.
Asterisk. I will draw one on myself. I'm
gonna tell you, if it's my team, I mean, you got to win it. I mean, everybody's playing under the same conditions.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no asterisk. Everybody is there playing under the same conditions. The rules, the target's been moved a little bit, but everybody has to play by it. Man, if it's my team, like to pull something off, I'm getting a T-shirt.
I'm gonna get a T-shirt, but I'm
sign me up.
Post it on. Because I don't know, like I would want it to be under even circumstances. And like, yes, if somebody got sick or like when Clay got hurt and or Kevin Durant and all that stuff, it's like, then it's not an even fair playing field, and you couldn't guarantee that anyway, right? Because of just natural, we're talking about human bodies.
Sure.
Like this, I don't know, given the, and I don't even think it's even. Like there's 22 teams and like not 8 in the East and like the rest over here in the West. I don't understand how they put it together, and it's just too much of a cluster for me. I'm just like, don't even do it.
But especially for the Clippers to pull it out. The Clippers, like the worst franchise in the history of pro sports. They really are. And I'm a Jets fan, so this is right. I mean, it would be unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be at the parade like, yay, with a mask on, but I'll just never sleep at night, as I haven't been since I've been a Clippers fan.
I love it. Well, do we want to talk more about sports? Because I want to talk about the Redskins. I want to talk about college sports, or do we want to go through the card, which I pulled up?
Yeah, let's talk about the card a little bit.
Let's talk about the card. Do we want to go through the early prelims here? Now, Vanessa Milo was the only one to miss weight.
I was just about to ask. Everybody made weight except her.
Everybody made. I cannot believe.
I thought one of the flyweights missed weight.
Yes, it was Vanessa Milo. It was a band.
No, I thought one of the men's flyweights missed weight.
Oh, one of the men. Okay, was it by much?
I think.
Oh, that's right. So it's not a title fight now, or wait, no.
3 pounds. I think he hit 129.
I think all the titles are good.
Yeah, he missed. I think the weight. I forget who it was. It was like 3 pounds. It was quite a bit.
Yeah. Should we go into prelims, which because we've got what is the fight here? Do we have, I'm trying to think of, are any of these on people's to discuss, or
I've got no thoughts on the early prelims.
Yeah.
Well, just, I mean, let's talk about from a betting standpoint, since Nancy got me into that pigeonhole, but that's all right. Let's talk about the Volkan fight, right? I mean, it's really interesting because he's a slight favorite, right? But Jiri's a monster. Like this guy is really coming on strong, and Volkan's one of those guys that you can kind of beat. I think there's some money to be made there. It's not big money, but I mean it's enough to float you through a couple of fights if you lose.
What is Ozdemir? What's he? How much is he favored?
I think he's minus 150 and plus 150 on the other side. It's it's a 1.5, but I mean it's something to kind of take a look at.
Yeah. No.
I love how Jiri has no reach. Like he has none. It's like no reach whatsoever.
Is that, who do they say? Is it is it Volkanovski as like the Velociraptor? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
back on the regular prelims, the first set of the prelims, Leonardo Santos, he doesn't fight very often, but he's undefeated in the UFC. He's knocked
Very
out Kevin Lee. He's the only person to knock out Kevin Lee. He armbarred GSP at ADCC 2005. He has world-class jiu-jitsu and really solid striking, and Bogatov can really only wrestle.
yeah.
And last I saw, Santos was maybe minus 190.
Ooh,
I think
that's an
Santos
interesting
is
bet
old,
there.
but I think he's a pretty safe bet in this
Yeah,
fight.
look at the grappling.
Minus 180.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting. Thank you. I'm gonna be like this. I'm much more gonna be engaged in that fight now as well. Here, let me go back. All right, to the main card, you guys. Pretty stacked.
Van Zandt was the first one. Right?
All right. What do we think of that one? What is that? You said it had been at like negative 900. That one.
Yeah, minus 900. It's shrunk a little bit because they need money on Page, but like, I mean, she just needs to get a few more Instagram followers and she's out, right?
Why does it say 155 here?
They have interns that don't pay attention.
I'm like, I hope that's not right.
Wait, Scott, what was the one fight that you said you wanted? Was it the fight you mentioned in the prelims? What was the one fight that you were going back and forth on?
So and she drives me nuts is Rose and Andrade, right?
Oh, okay.
You know, I go off.
I didn't
on Rose
I didn't
quite a
want to
bit.
skip us up ahead. I just didn't want to avoid answering your other question.
I mean,
No. She's not motivated, right? You never know like what kind of mood she's in. She's super moody, but she won every second of the Andrade fight up until she went to sleep.
Right.
look at this.
Right? I mean, it's
35. So
He used to fight at 135.
she had spot there, but
Yeah.
okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I may avoid it altogether, but at 1-2 for Rose. I mean, plus 150 for Jessica. I mean, what do you guys think about that fight? I mean, does Rose show up motivated, or because if she does, I mean, she's tough.
Yeah.
I'd put money on Rose.
I think
She hasn't had a poor performance in a really long time. When she lost this fight, she was winning until she got caught going for a Kimura and got slammed, which is kind of a strange thing to happen. And she wouldn't make that same mistake again. Prior to that, she was on a run. I mean, she was dominating that fight. So I think there's every reason to believe that she's going to be good and win.
Like she dominated every single second of that fight. She was totally picking Andrade apart. And
she's not gonna hang on.
Goes so high level to, like you said, she got caught in a Kimura and slammed to get caught in something that literally happens on your first day of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's a wild
thing. It was her being aggressive with a submission. So I feel like there's not reason. I think she's I'd be confident putting money on her in that one.
Yeah, me too.
What about Jessica feeling a little bit daunted after being taken out so quickly from Zhang?
I think it's a tough matchup for Andrade, and I think that Rose showed that in the first fight. Rose has such good striking and can use her reach. So
one thing to keep in mind, Rose always starts strong. She won the first 2 rounds against Joanna in their second fight, and then she dropped 3 and 4, and then she like pulled everything out and won the 5th round.
Yeah.
But Rose tends to have about 2 rounds of cardio.
Yeah. It's a 3-round fight though, which is good.
Yes, but she's really lead heavy. And what Andrade has a really narrow technical thing. She throws hooks, and she leg kicks pretty much, and she has good wrestling. But Andrade was kicking Rose's leg every time she went forward, and Rose was starting to slow down halfway through that second round. And the reason Andrade was able to get in on her more was because Rose was slowing down, and the strike differential was evening up a lot. And I think Andrade might be a smarter fighter than Rose, even if she is much more narrow technically. Andrade makes a lot of adjustments in the fight. The slam that she landed on Rose, Rose had defended the slam the same exact way 3 times. And Andrade made an adjustment and knocked her out.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning Rose, but also there's just so much unknown in this fight, and I don't think I have no idea.
No,
Who's
and
gonna-
we were supposed to have this fight for 249.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's been delayed. You just don't know how that affects a fighter. And, now I was very much on Rose, but now I'm a little bit more skeptical, but I just can't wait to see this fight, to be honest. And I think I'm going to still put my money on Rose, but I'm only put like $10 on my DC lottery app. Okay. By the way, I think Paige Van Zandt, the biggest thing is, I mean, what do you guys, if she had a chance, what would she have to do?
I think her like unpredictability is a thing that gets her over the top sometimes. Like, I can't remember who she was against in that one fight, but she threw that like jumping switch kick like out of nowhere, like got the knockout, So she's even though she might not be the most skilled fighter in the world, she's incredibly athletic. You know what I mean? And I think that people sleep on that aspect of her. So I think Dan Hardy was on the Open Mat podcast this week, and they were talking about this fight. And they talked about how Paige had gone from being like a fighter who became a celebrity to now being a celebrity who also fights, And this is her last fight, evidently, and she's really just trying to like get a win if she can, so that she can maybe jump off and check out like something like Bellator or something, where she could sort of be more of like a showcase fighter who wouldn't necessarily have to be thrown to the wolves and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting to know about where she is, but I think Amanda is like the real deal for sure. But isn't Amanda also moving up in weight class to do this fight?
Yeah. Yeah, this is their first time
that's-
at 125.
Right. And so that's always a weird thing too. I mean, sometimes it's like they come in like refreshed and stronger than normal, but other times they come in slower and all of a sudden, Paige Van Zandt isn't a pushover, at one weight class up. So I don't know. I just feel like, obviously if I was putting money on this, I would put it on Amanda, but I think that, I think that Paige has more going for her than people remember, because she's become such a sort of Instagram personality. People forget that she actually, has skills and could possibly win this fight.
Yeah.
Her only losses are to top people. I think she's incredibly underappreciated. If it wasn't Amanda Ribas, who I think is amazing, I would say that Paige would be worth betting on, just because people don't appreciate how good she is.
Mm-hmm.
But she wins the fight she's supposed to win, and she loses the fight she's supposed to lose. Like, there's no above her station for her. Like, she is who she is. And so you see somebody like Rivas, who is a monster, right? Who can submit you, who can knock you out, who's won pretty impressively. Didn't she beat Marcos in her last time out? If I'm not mistaken. I mean, that's saying that's a notch in your cap right there. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So I don't see this going Paige's way. I mean, and she has a tendency of taking some damage too, win or lose. So I mean, for me, I know the odds are insane, but I mean, it's almost like free money.
One thing with Paige is that she also puts on a good performance. I mean, she got choked out by Michelle Watterson, and then she had her arm. She fought with
arm broken. Yeah.
Broken arm.
It's been bothering her ever since too. So I guess
So that's to note. But that she's not going to come out quick. I mean, she can last. So, or go out.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, I could see this just go in the distance. I mean, it's a 3-round fight, and like I said, even though Amanda's looked really good, at a lower weight class, there's also like all these fights. The other X factor is just like all this crazy stuff that they're doing on top of it. They're fighting like in the morning. They're off on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Rose has like lost family members recently to the COVID and all this kind of stuff. It's just such a crazy situation that it's also one of the reasons why I think these possible upsets are on everybody's mind, because it just feels like everything about this is a dice roll,
I agree, Joe. I think mental toughness is, you got to give points to that for who can kind of be flexible and resilient. They're also
Right.
fighting in front of no people. They won't have their families there. You know,
It's so crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I was following Amy Kaplan's feed about during some of the press that they did pre-weigh-ins and stuff, and Paige was late, and then when she finally came out, she was like, I was sleeping, because she was just trying to catch up and recuperate, right? She was like, sorry, I'm late, I was sleeping, so
Yeah.
it's like the mental part of this, like we're forgetting so many other controlled variables about like what makes 251 so interesting and borderline complicated, even from a betting standpoint of predicting, because there are a
100%.
lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
Joe, you have a great point, and Nancy and I kind of went back and forth about this. And as a boxing guy, you get a lot of fights from the other parts of the world that are catered to the eastern part of the United States. And this is probably 10 more years ago. We had this guy Jeff Lacey, just an absolute monster, and he went over and he fought Joe Calzaghe, and they aired that over here, at whatever 10, 11 o'clock, midnight. Well, they were fighting in England at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I'll do a lot of things to prove that I'm good at something. I'm not doing that. I'm not taking that fight. There's no way. That is an unbelievable challenge that I think kind of goes understated. Plus, you got no fans there to pump you up. You're kind of
Right.
on your own. There's some weird stuff going on, for sure. But that time change thing to me is just
Yeah.
crazy.
And this
Yeah,
is
and they
not
haven't. Oh, sorry, you go.
small. I was going to just make sure this wasn't in the 25-foot smaller cage like at Apex, right?
No, I think
Oh,
it
I
is.
don't know.
Or is it the 25-foot?
I've heard it's the standard.
That's the new standard, 25?
No, or I think it's the 30, but if anyone can find that out, maybe
Yeah.
25 is the beach one. And
Yeah. Well, going along with the time change, they haven't had the ability to be there for 2 or 3 weeks to adapt either, which
Right.
you often see when people go across. This has to be a really short, abbreviated stay. So that's tough. I mean, that's,
Kyle, I
but
actually
there's,
don't want to adjust. They want to feel like they're fighting
oh, okay. Yeah.
fight.
And they don't want anybody to get sick.
What's that?
And they don't want anybody to get sick. The longer you have to chill and be out in a bubble, it's like the more chances you can catch.
Yeah.
But I've been hearing that's the problem, is that they don't want to.
They don't want to get used to
They want.
that's rough.
It's still.
Yeah.
We have circadian rhythms. It's your body
That's,
wants to wake up with the sun.
I
and
know.
So
That's why betting on this stuff is so hard. There's no way to know.
I know you got to take in all these factors. Plus, they haven't been training in their regular gyms and their regular routines. They are having the uncertainty that we're all dealing with. So, we shall see.
The rise and fall of Paige Van Sant has been pretty fascinating too, just in terms of marketing. I mean, she really was the media darling for 2 years going.
Yeah.
It was kind of her and Sage Northcutt were the people the UFC really was pushing way too hard. And then now that she's had a few losses, she's also speaking out she's not getting paid enough. And then suddenly they don't care. They're not pushing her at all. And they're giving her a really hard matchup, right? They're just kind of pushing her out the door with a loss. So
it is interesting to look at those two. That would be a really good case study, because it's so sad. Scott and I talk about Mike Perry all the time, because you knew a girl who dated him. And I guess
Oh, wow.
getting some.
So I had a small relationship with a girl, his ex-wife. They live next door to each other. And he would climb the palm tree next door and jump into the pool. And the guy was off his rock. It was bananas. The UFC gym was right down the street in Winter Springs, Florida. I mean, the guy was off, just crazy. It was loud over there all the time. It was bananas. Yeah, I mean, that guy is that guy. I mean, I've interacted with him on a very, very limited basis. And I am extremely thankful that it's not much more than that.
Hey guys, if just in case we're still wondering, I looked it up, and it's going to be a 30-foot octagon on Fight Island.
Thank you. That's good to know. What did you guys think? Well, wait, I got it. Putting a pin on that. I'm going to ask what you guys thought of the 25-foot in the Apex. Scott, wait, did you date the Platinum Princess then?
No.
Okay.
So they lived next door to a girl that I was dating. Yeah. So yeah, it was, and it's like they had a big fence in the middle. and there's this big palm tree, climb up the palm tree, jump off of it. It was bananas. It was crazy.
Well, why I bring him up is that he was able to train with none of his regular coaches. I think he had Latori, his new girlfriend, in his corner. It didn't really look like she was given that much support. But he was still able to beat Mickey Gall, and Mickey Gall beat Sage Northcutt. And I was just like, that shows you maybe Sage wasn't ready for the light. But going back, sorry for the digression, 25 feet. What did you guys think? Did it make for a better fight?
I feel like
After
I'm
Hooker
the.
and Poyer, let's go.
I feel like I feel like I might be the exception, but I hated it. I really like the bigger
Wow.
cage. I want people to be able to move. Thinking about the Rose fight, I like people being able to keep distance. I think it allows for different techniques to be used. It forces action for sure, but I like fighters having the ability to not fight like that. I don't want to see Israel Adesanya in a smaller cage. I don't want to see fighters that want to move and counter in that space. So I think it's an advantage for some fighters. Definitely good for grapplers. Definitely good for people like Mike Perry who just want to knock you out. But I like space.
We'll see. We'll see how much the Apex is brought in, because people are pretty much, I mean,
People love it.
Yeah. Do you guys think it's Apex and Fight Island up until at least 2021?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on in like your local neighborhoods, but like Nashville has had this like, this roadmap to reopening, and they've already, they went to like the third stage, and now we've already moved back to the second stage. And because all these cases were exploding, especially at like bars and restaurants and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff people really want to get back to, it's like, yeah, there's just no way we can do that right now. And I actually talked to, there's a beer brewery up the road from me that will actually do like local deliveries, right? So I had this guy come by earlier today and like brought me some beer, and they had told me before, like back last month was my birthday, and they had come by and dropped me off some beer during that time, and he told me, hey, we're only going to do this until the end of July. But when I talked to him today, I said, hey, are you guys still planning to like stop doing this after July? And he's like, actually, no, now they're telling us we're probably going to be able to do it longer, because basically they're not going to lift the like emergency, blanket off, sooner than that. So they'll get to just keep doing it, which is fine. But it's like, I really would like to get back to the point where I can, drive down there and go hang out in the tasting room or something, So it's just sort of the same story all over the place, I think, where, the weather got nicer and the curve, dropped down a little bit, and everybody thought, well, now we get back to normal. And it's like, not really. It's going to be a lot longer.
No.
Joe, are you getting that Southern grist out there?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been there too. Yeah, that's good. The place I'm talking about is Yazoo Brewery. They're like right up the road from me. But
Okay.
yeah, Southern Grist is down in East Nashville, which is like East Nashville neighborhood sort of extends up into the Inglewood neighborhood, which is where I used to live. And then we bought a house earlier this year in Old Hickory, which is just a little bit further north and east. So it's all kind of connected. We're all east of the Cumberland River from downtown Nashville. But yeah, Southern Grist is real good. I'm pretty much a fan of most of the breweries around here. They all have different beers that I like. So yeah, I like that place a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of the most of what we get down here is people bring back is Southern grist. We've had a lot of really good stuff
Oh.
from them.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Music and beer. Nashville's
Yeah.
just turning it out.
No,
No,
they are. Yep.
interesting.
That's it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, actually, they've been having live music at this. There's a restaurant that opened like inexplicably, like just a few months ago, like right up the road from me, like right here in my neighborhood. And they've been since they've actually been able to reopen and have like limited seating and stuff. They've been doing music there and stuff. But to be honest, I mean, I don't really want to go back to any of these places until I can actually just go back to them and not have to worry about any of this stuff. Like, I don't. People walking around with masks on is not appetizing. I'd rather just be barbecuing in my backyard, frankly.
I'm with you, Joe. For me, to have that experience of hanging out, I want to know that safety is not in
Yeah.
question.
I know. I want to just be able to relax and enjoy it and not have to worry about any of that stuff, preferably, I mean, I don't, it's interesting. I mean, I think we've all learned a lot about like things we should have all been thinking about more during every flu season that we've lived through. But at the same time, I mean, this is obviously different, and for these numbers to just be continuing on no matter what, the summer weather and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of a drag, frankly. But I think probably if the UFC can maintain doing Fight Island and Apex, I mean, it's still going to be a major a major feat to be able to pull that off regularly for the rest of the year.
I agree. Now, Tanisha, who's now in our Vegas resident, our Vegas point person, I just read that they shut down the bars in Vegas.
Yeah, I haven't been to any, or I haven't eaten out in since March. I was saying like the Zhang fight was the last time I went out and watched a fight in public, and that was March. I haven't been out since and had a beer anywhere.
That sucks.
And it sucks. And it's like, now that I'm here in Vegas, it's like, yeah, I heard that they're trying to go back. Like we were in phase 3 as well, Joe. And it's like, now we're in phase 2 again. Like we've screwed up. And it's like all the casinos are open down here. So I did a drive-by around the strip, and it's like nothing ever happened. Like everybody wearing masks. And just like we were joking, Nancy, like those showgirls with the feather boas and stuff. And they got a grill on their face. And I just think it's hilarious. Like, it's still, and it's like, I haven't been in any casinos. I don't want to. I'm not a gambler, but I can't imagine somebody wanting to touch a poker chip right now. And it's like they got those condoms on the slot machines, and it's like people are just doing that and socially distancing by making every other one available. But it's like I started going back to the gym because those opened the end of like the middle of June. I got a different gym membership here, and one that's ginormous. So there's like 3 floors. So they had no capacity issues. So I picked that one because like some of the other ones were like, oh, well, you have to reserve an hour. And I was like, what? My shit takes like 2. But so I went to this big one, but it's like, I'm wiping everything down before and after. I have my own pocket sanitizer, so I'm like, But I took a COVID test yesterday, so we'll see if I've screwed myself or not. But it's like, there's people, complaining about the mask and stuff. But like you, Joe, I don't want to go back to like some half weird new normal. Like I would rather just wait, listen to science, and kind of chill. That I've been doing relatively, outside around other people. But for the most part, it's big enough. I'm away from other people, and I just want to lift heavy iron and go home. And so like that's what I do in there.
Well, it's this constant rushing to halfway to normal that makes us have to wait longer. Right. if we actually do it right, maybe we can make it to a point where we can enjoy ourselves. This is what frustrates me so much.
Yeah.
Kyle, you guys, we are just in phase 2. We just had like salons open last week, I feel like beginning of last week. So I know, and like everyone's wearing masks here. So it's interesting to hear this different. What about you, Kyle? What's it like up in upstate New York?
We haven't had any serious outbreaks in comparison to what you see like downstate, but people are still rushing out and starting to resume normal activity, which is pretty scary. I mean, if you drive down the main street of Rochester, people are eating and drinking and not wearing masks, and people are having parties outside. And I think because they're outside, they think it's safe, but it's not. I went to get sushi yesterday to kind of treat myself, and the sushi chef was not wearing a mask while he was making it, which is pretty scary because it's not like you can go home and microwave the sushi for safety.
Right.
So people are just getting really sloppy. I feel like we haven't done the work, but since it's been so long, we're acting like we did the work. And so we're seeing other countries start to resume normal. We're like, oh, they're doing it. We were unhappy here, so we'll just do the same thing. But yeah,
I hear you.
Not as bad here, but it's pretty horrifying still.
I have so much. My husband says I'm using the term wrong, and Atticus, you probably know this, FOMO, but that's fear now about like Korea, because they're going to actually have live sports.
New Zealand's been having live sports for months now. right?
Yeah, I'm ready to move to New Zealand and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just like marry someone, move in a hut and watch rugby. That's all
Yeah.
I'm ready to do.
The whole Lord of the Rings thing.
What is
Yeah.
it?
That's like
I'm- I don't know why.
Kinda-
I'm
oh.
amazed. I'm amazed there's a sport league like the NBA wasn't like, let's just do our bubble in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Let's go there. Let's quarantine for 2 weeks, and then our players can actually live their lives for a bit.
Well,
Like,
the NHL is going to be in Canada, right?
oh, really?
That's
Wisely.
what I've heard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it's interesting because even Europe, which has Italian and German soccer, and I think even Spain has started their leagues, but they've all had actual down, like they actually have a curve. where
Yeah.
they have, just
Legit.
just a projectile up. So it is disheartening to see that, and I think this is like, could we have shifted things? And
Wasn't there a UFC fight in New Zealand not too long ago before this? Thing?
I can't. Was that earlier this year?
No, I think it was last winter. or
Last
the
winter.
fall.
That might be
Yeah.
last winter. I know. Tanisha, make your plans for.
Never mind.
Well, let's get back to the card because we've got Jan versus Aldo, and Aldo, I guess, had a hard time. Obviously, he's going down to 135. I heard he had to take off both his briefs and his face mask. You got to get everything,
His face mask.
Probably a couple ounces right there. So, I mean, this is interesting. They must give their weight as their usual weight here, or it is a bad intern. I don't know, because I know that one that said Paige Van Zandt was 155. But anyway, what do you guys think about this fight? We're looking at the matchup.
This fight
I was-
should be happening.
Ooh, all right, Atticus, go.
I mean, like, Aljamain Sterling just beat Corey Sandhagen. Aljamain Sterling is the #1 bantamweight in the world right now. He should be champ. That fight should have been for the belt, I think. Peter Yan is really, really good. I'd probably favor him in a match with Sterling.
Yeah.
But Aldo lost to Moraes.
Yeah.
His only fight at bantamweight, and he's shot. Like, I love him. He's probably my favorite fighter of all time. I think he's the best fighter of all time, but he's not who he used to be at all. He hasn't been able to throw leg kicks because of his knee and his foot for like 6 years now. He has shown regression in how he's fighting, and he could barely even like cut the cage in the 3rd round of the Moraes fight. And Moraes was faster, and he was just hitting him with the jab over and over and over again. And like,
Yeah.
This fight is gonna hurt, but I just don't really think Aldo can win unless he lands a lucky hit in the 1st round, probably.
I got it. Scott, are you betting on this one?
Well, first of all, I'm going to agree with everything he just said, except for that GOAT stuff. I don't want to get carried away with the GOAT stuff. He was absolutely fantastic, spectacular fighter. Maybe somewhere around that top 5-ish area. But man, that's something. But yeah, he was a hell of an exciting fighter to watch. Yeah, absolutely. This kid Jan, he's the Russian mafia that shows up when you don't pay your tab, and he doesn't play around. And he's there to win, and he's there to do it quickly, and he's there to do it, as aggressively and as nasty as possible. And I love guys who come to put it all on the line. He's kind of fun to watch because he sits in a shell a little bit where he uses his upper body almost as to settle into a defensive posture, but yet he's still kind of on the line. I love watching him, but man, his striking is uber creative. The way he just finished his last fight was beyond impressive. His last 10 strikes were probably all completely different and unique. So yeah, I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of pain in this fight, and it's not going to be his.
So remind me, Atticus and Scott, why is Aljamain Sterling not fighting? Did he just fight, or politics? Because
Yeah, your guess is as good as
Cejudo
mine.
got offered the Aldo fight, and then I think they were just like, yeah, let's have Aldo fight. Like, I don't think a lot of thought put into this, honestly, other than we can get money out of this because it's a title fight.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I'm going with Jan as well. I really want Aldo. He's such a great fighter, whether or not he's the GOAT or not. And then, Kyle, do you have a GOAT when you have your profile picture?
Oh yeah, I actually do that. Or let me look back at that picture. It's either a sheep or a goat. I have to take a look.
Like that is so crazy. But
I used to have some goats and sheep at the last place I was a professor.
really,
When I was even in a more rural part of New York for 3 years.
as one does, you have your,
Yeah. We went all in on the rural experience for a little bit to see what it was like.
that. I love it. And where are the goats now? In a good place?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They're in even further north in New York, up near the Adirondacks.
That's got to be the weirdest professor pet I've ever heard of, but I love it.
Yeah, I never brought the goat to class though.
Yeah. I would bring it. Oh, go ahead, Tanisha.
No, I was gonna say P.S. That New Zealand fight, it felt like forever ago. It was actually just in February. It was the Dan Hooker, Paul Felder fight that went to decision. That
Oh,
was
wow.
it felt like forever ago, and that was just February.
In COVID time, that was like a couple years.
I forgot that was his like home, because he's from Austin.
Yeah.
That's
All
crazy that Hooker's had those two wars so close. I mean, because both those
Yeah.
fights were hard fights.
Oh, they're brutal. I think I agree that Jan wins, but I think Aldo has a better showing than both of you predict. I mean, Aldo's boxing is really good. It's sad that he can't kick anymore, but his boxing is still solid. His takedown defense is still awesome.
And
He
he's
loses,
big.
but it's not. Yeah, he's not easy to beat. I mean, he fought Volkanovski, and Volkanovski wasn't able to finish him either. So, I think Aldo is not what he used to be, but he's not a fighter is done either.
Yeah.
Oh, and I completely agree with you there. I just I can't see this fight ending well for him. I think
Yeah,
if
I
he's
don't-
gonna win,
It's going to be really. I'd be surprised if he wins, but I would not. I think it goes to a decision. I don't think he gets finished.
Right. Now, speaking of Volkanovski, this is Atticus. You saw this in person, correct? As did I. Back when
Wow.
that was a different world when you could go to fights and go to inside arenas.
How long ago was their first fight? When did they fight last?
It was UFC
December?
245. I think that was December.
14, 12. It was 12.
Yeah.
Okay, so just over half a year ago.
God, that was a half a year ago. And it was very close, I think
For sure.
Max believes he says he won, but it was very close. Who do you thought won that, Atticus?
I thought Volkanovski pretty clearly won 49-46.
Do you think that having the rematch, though, is warranted?
I think Volkanovski is the one who wants the rematch. Holloway has said he doesn't want the rematch. Everything coming out of Holloway's camp scares me for this fight.
I need to do this.
He hasn't had any training partners. He hasn't been able to see his coaches because of the Hawaii lockdown. He's just been doing solo conditioning and work for over. And he keeps saying that he thinks he won the first fight, which means I can't trust him to make the adjustments he needs to actually win this fight. And
Max,
yeah.
I always am a bit afraid with Max because I went through, was it UFC, 223, where they brought him in. And this is where, Scott, I was telling you, I was so afraid with Masvidal, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Weight cut. They brought Max in to fight Khabib with 10 days. And I thought it was ridiculous that he was going to do this weight cut of 20 or even more pounds. And so we lost him on that. And then I remember I was so excited to see him fight Brian Ortega in, I think that was 237. I can't get my numbers right. And he looked so bad. He had that kind of punch drunk talk, whatever it was
Right.
going on. And I know that was a result of those weight cuts. So I'm always worried about him. And it's a little, I didn't really realize that he was limited so much in his training. But there's something about Blessed that he's got stamina. And you know, I never count him out, I feel, even if he had these issues.
I think you're right. I think the other thing, you know, if he hasn't had the camp and he has all those problems like going into it, it doesn't look good. And I would agree that I've heard him saying things leading up to the fight that I don't like to hear either. I mean, I don't like to hear him saying like, oh, you know, he kicked me leg, that didn't even hurt, da 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 da, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, southpaw, after you got kicked in the leg a bunch of times, that pretty much tells everybody that it did hurt and you had to switch your stance. So there's things like that are definitely troublesome leading into this. But that said, I think Max is incredible, and he's shown the ability to make changes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, almost like no other fighter is able to do. Like he beat when he beat Aldo the first time, he came back and fought him again, almost as a totally different fighter the second time. Like I think he played the whole second fight in southpaw. You know, so it's just like it was very he at his very best. I feel like he's got what it takes to make the adjustments, bring a new plan, and win this fight, because it was a close fight. Even though I do think he lost that fight, it was really it was a question of like this. He was the first fighter who was ever able to like shut Max down and not let Max do Max. You know what I mean? He was able to, at every moment where Max was about to like start to like chain together all those punches and strikes and all the moves that he usually does and wears people down and puts all that pressure on them. You know, it was like every time that would start to happen, Volkanovski would find a way to like, boom, there's the leg kick again. Pow, pow, there's a combination and he's out the back door, you know, whatever. You know, he really did an amazing job, and I don't want to take anything away from him. But it was close enough and it was hard enough to do that I feel like him being able to do that twice, I question whether anybody can do that twice in a row. I would love it if Max was able to make the adjustments, able to bring a new plan, able to take this fight, and then we do a trilogy. That'd be fantastic. And honestly, for that weight division, it's not like it back in the Conor days when featherweight was like, you know, everybody and their brother was, you know, trying to kill each other. So I think it would be interesting even for the division for there to be a trilogy fight happening between those two guys. It wouldn't surprise me if he beats him, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Max, you know, was able to come back and show people, you know, why he had that long streak that he had. And if, I mean, for me on Saturday night, I'm voting for Max. But if he gets beat, I won't be shocked. You know?
I agree with a lot of what you said, Joe. I think Volkanovski is a really tough matchup for him. I don't know how much to believe about his camp. That's what's so hard, because Max is
100%
kind of a funny guy. So like he knows what he's doing. I can't tell if he's telling the truth or playing a game.
For sure.
He knows the leg kicks hurt, but he doesn't want to say that he's going to switch up his style. He doesn't want Volkanovski to also switch. And I have trouble believing, even if Hawaii is in lockdown, fighters find a way to train. I mean, even I'm actually doing a little study right now where I'm interviewing amateur or people who train as a hobby, not even compete. And people are finding a way to train during lockdown, whether it's in a friend's basement, whether it's gyms are opening up illegally. Like if he wanted to, he can find a way. So I think it's a little bit of playing a game by saying, oh yeah, I haven't seen my coaches other than Zoom. I mean, if that's true, that's scary. But for a championship fight, I think he's training more than he lets on.
Yeah,
there's a few
but there's
guys
no way to know
that can get out of bed, and literally he's going to have to this time to get out of bed and fight, right?
Yeah,
that can legitimately scrap, that can throw based in any conditions, and we've got one at the top of this card. We've got one right behind him. This is that guy. He just knows. He knows his way around the ring. He knows angles. He knows how to fight. He knows how to adjust. Yeah. I mean, you've seen some weird things with him outside the ring, like Nancy said with the Khabib deal, and but
it seems like this weight cut went well for him, right? Though it seems like we didn't have any indicators.
Yeah, it seems good.
He seems sharp.
Mm-hmm.
This is has anyone heard him saying that this is now his 12th island? Because Vegas is 10th, Toronto is 11, and I'm like, yes, island, perfect. Any other thoughts? So Scott, this was the one that you didn't know where to go on?
No. I'm pretty confident, in this fight. I think that it's Volkanovski's time. I think
He's a
shown
favorite,
the
though,
ability
right?
to adjust. He is a slight favorite. I don't think it's anything crazy. He's well rounded, and I think that sometimes you get these glitchy things where one guy can beat another guy,
Yeah.
no matter how many times they fight, and I think that's what this is. That's the way it feels to me here. He just controlled the entire fight. He didn't win the entire last fight, but he was in control the entire fight. And I think we're going to see probably the same exact fight we saw last time.
Well, you bring up a good point too, because that aspect of control, I mean, that's exactly why Max had that run that he had, is because he owned that octagon against everybody he fought. Like, he ran those fights, even when he would lose a round or even when he would lose an exchange. At the end of the day, everybody was having to fight Max on his own terms. And that's exactly what Volkanovski was able to disrupt and basically just keep the lid on it for that whole fight. He just was not letting Max do his thing. It was kind of like, I mean, to me, it looked a lot like when Ferguson had his fight against Gaethje. Ferguson kept trying to make it Ferguson land, and Gaethje just wasn't having it. You know what I mean? And it was like, no matter what, everything Tony tried to do, he just could not turn it into the wild chaos that he needs to triumph. You know what I mean? And so I think both of those fights, to me, were fights where you saw guys trying to do the thing that they do best and finding themselves just hitting that immovable object that was not going to let them do that, So it would, again, I think if Volkanovski wins, I won't be shocked. But if Max wins, I also won't be shocked. And honestly, that's an outcome that I prefer just because it'll be more interesting to me in a way.
Yeah. No, hey, Atticus, where are you going?
I'm definitely leaning Volkanovski. I think just as a fighter, he is one of the strongest strategic minds in the sport, at least right now, maybe ever. The way that he was able to use his he's not phenomenal at any part of the physical game, but his ability to weave it together into different styles. Like against Aldo, he fought a completely different fight than he fought against Max. Yeah. And he fought a completely different fight against Chad Mendes. And he's beaten 3 of the top people in this division's history in a row convincingly. Yeah. That's just incredible. And I think Max can make adjustments, but Volkanovski can too. So I'm definitely leaning him since he won the first fight, and then everything I'm hearing out of Max's camp.
This is showing how much the team that you're part of really matters. I mean, that team is on an incredible run. Yeah. So he has great coaches.
I know.
That's one thing about Volkanovski that does make me want to root for him. Is I love that gym, and I love the way that gym has sort of become the cutting edge, you know what I mean, in terms of seeing all these fighters who are beating these world beaters, coming out of that space and really learning so much about what they're able to do with all their constant feinting and all this kind of stuff, and just this whole another, it's like a next level that they're bringing to the game, and I definitely admire that. And I love him as a fighter.
It's such a beautiful style too. And when you look at how that gym trains, they don't rely on that classic just spar every day, beat each other up in the gym. It's a lot of clever stuff, a lot of movement. And they're the type of people I like to see in a bigger cage, because you get to see them implement such interesting approaches of striking. So yeah, I'm rooting for Max, but I like both of them a lot.
Yeah.
Now, Tanisha, any thoughts on this one?
I'm leaning Volkanovski too. Won't be surprised if it goes the other way, but I think too, I'm just curious to see how Volkanovski, what we see from him, because so much attention has been put on Max and what he's saying about lack of camp and Zoom meetings and stuff. If Volkanovski is going to get soft or complacent, if he comes out still aggressive and does what we all expect him to do, then yeah, this should be pretty one-sided. But I think I'm curious to see if he comes out still the aggressor as the champion defending, or will he kind of buy into maybe some psychology mind games that Max is very capable of playing.
I think that's a perfect tee off to our last fight, the main headlining fight, I would say, the welterweight title bout with Kamaru Usman, and last minute replacement. Was it 10 days? previously supposed to fight Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal. I actually am finally able to really sigh and think this is a real fight, because as I was texting Scott, I was really concerned that I didn't want to get my hopes up that this fight was going on. What are your thoughts? Did anyone else have those concerns, or did you guys know that Jorge Masvidal never has missed weight and is game?
I was terrified he was going to miss weight, not only for his own health, but also just for my own satisfaction as somebody who wanted to see him make weight so I could see that fight. So I was very excited today. I think you mentioned it on your email. You're like, assuming he makes weight, and I'm like, oh, don't even talk about it. I don't know how you lose 20 pounds in a week, but he looked good. So that's, and I'm glad the fight's on, and I'm glad it's not under some kind of shadow where the belts won't change or anything like that. I'm super glad.
Clearly.
And he used to fight at 155, so it's not like he's always had a hard weight cut. So I think that helps a lot too, because he's not pushing himself that last little ounce that he can get out. So
yeah, true.
All right, what do we think about this matchup? Everyone what I've been hearing is that has Masvidal really been against a wrestler? Now I think Ben Askren is an asterisk, because we really didn't see much more than like a few seconds of that fight. Like, what are your thoughts on this fight?
I think Kamaru Usman's a monster, man. But I also think it's a cool matchup for those two to fight each other. And I would like to think that Masvidal has what it takes to sort of fight off the wrestling, but I don't know that he does necessarily. And I really think Kamaru is, unfortunately, I don't think he gets the respect he deserves, like, in terms of the way he's just been able to destroy some people. And, I also feel like a lot of times, like, I like the fighter who is gonna it's going to make the next fight look more interesting, so part of me would love to see Masvidal win, just because if Masvidal wins, then possibly he's already saying that maybe he would then fight Nate again, which would be really give us the fight we wanted in the first place out of that, maybe. And then here's my chain of events. And then what if Nate wins that fight? Okay, so that's two fights they've had. Masvidal wins the first one, Nate wins the second one, and then Nate now has the title belt and the BMF belt. That pulls Conor back into the thing for their trilogy. Then Nate beats Conor because Conor has no honor. and then Nate and Masvidal fight again to do their trilogy. I mean, this is the greatest thing in the world. And then Kamaru Usman comes back, and maybe he fights that guy, and then he's got his shot at back to the belt.
Big man over here.
MMA math. I think he almost like wrote a song too, right? What is it? Conor has no honor. Like that.
But I think it could be really fun. But I think Usman's a monster, and I think Masvidal also is. I mean, if anybody can come out of nowhere, drop 20 pounds, and win this fight, it's probably Masvidal. You know what I mean? I mean, this is the kind of thing that he's great at. You know what I mean?
I feel like I'm just curious what you think Masvidal's path to actually winning is, because I feel like the only way it happens is if he tires out Usman and can take over and win the final 3 rounds. Because when they're fresh, I feel like Usman can take him down. Has Usman ever got tired in a fight?
Has anybody from Western Africa ever gotten tired doing anything? Those guys, they have motors. It's just what they are. And that's what this reminds me of. Do you remember when the U.S. used to play the Ivory Coast in the World Cup, right? And the guys really weren't that skilled of players, but they just kept coming, right? And that's what I see in this guy.
Usman's incredibly skilled though. Like he has such good technique with his takedowns, and I think that's why he doesn't get tired too.
But it's one trick, right? It's a great trick, but it's still a trick.
Yeah,
Is Usman is favored, right? What are the bets?
Yeah,
by a lot, right?
Yeah, I think I would have to go back and look it up, but it's pretty substantial. It's
and I'm curious if he was versus Burns too. Because I'm always thinking about like how much of his style is he going to have to switch up on 10 days notice. 'Cause
Right.
Burns, I almost think would have, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm so
I really
excited.
wanted to see that fight bad.
Yeah. And so I'm like, with this, is he going to have to switch up what he had been preparing for? Like, I'm not sure if what he, from what his side standpoint, like, what is he going to have to switch up? But he's a wrestler. So this is going to be on the ground.
So Usman is minus 240, but I guess my question to you, Tanisha, is what is he going to do differently, right? I mean, we've seen this guy fight a bunch of times, and he was able to get Covington out of there with punches. But before that, it was,
Right.
and he's beat a lot of top guys, right? But I mean, were y'all really impressed by that? I mean, yeah, he's a monster. He's got a motor, but I'm not. I don't have this feeling about that guy that he's like this unovercomable, insanely skilled guy. Like, I just don't feel like that about him. I feel like you said, he's got a great trick, right? His takedowns, he's a monster, right? But it's not really easy to get Jorge on the ground either. This guy's
I wonder about that.
This guy's been in every kind of fight you could possibly imagine, and he's pretty skilled. Can that trick work? Sure, absolutely. It's a great trick. But I don't know.
No, Atticus, what are your feelings?
I think labeling Usman's wrestling is very technically deep. He is similar. He has a very heavy folk style. I really disagree with you saying his wrestling isn't deep.
You're completely right with that, because it's not like he just has a powerful blast double leg. He has a whole variety of techniques that he switches between. So I mean, that's why, and that's what's so important for why he doesn't get tired. He's not just out muscling people. We saw that with Woodley. He didn't just out muscle Woodley. He switched up his technique over and over and took him down, which is impressive against Woodley.
Right, but how much do we get out of Woodley after we saw his last performance? That guy reminds me of Rose. He just comes in and he's got this just uninspired look on his face, and he just doesn't give you a whole lot. What's he want to give? And I kind of feel like that's, Usman kind of caught Woodley at the right time and just took him down, and that was that. So I'm not sure if that's the best example. I mean, finishing Colby, obviously, I think is, a top-notch Colby, I think, was probably a pretty good example of what we're going to get. And this guy is getting better. But, I think Jorge is like this modern-day Rocky, right? He's lost 846 fights. I mean, he's never been finished, I don't think, right? But he's lost a gazillion fights to a gazillion different people at a gazillion different weights, and here he is fighting for a championship. I kind of feel like it's his time.
Well, and Scott, you're kind of bringing in the other influences, because that's, I think, with this fight, obviously 10 days notice, although maybe he knew it was a good idea to be on call to make sure he was primed, because I mean, it looks like he's ready and he's been training. So he's coming in. Now, Usman, did you read the Brett Okamoto article about his father?
Yeah.
Yes. Atticus, can you enlighten us? Because I think this is interesting.
Usman.
Yeah, I got my battery's dying, so I might disappear in a second. So sorry if I drop out. It isn't because I disagree with what Atticus is saying.
Well, goodbye, Kyle, if we lose.
Yeah, if I drop out unexpectedly, it's good talking to all you.
Yes, exactly.
So something that Colby hit Usman on in the lead up to their fight was that Usman never fought on a pay-per-view before he was the champ. And he's like, you're not pay-per-view quality, you're not entertaining enough, all of that. And then just recently, Usman actually came out talking about why that was. And I think his dad has been in prison for like 15 years.
15
and
10 to 15.
Usman knew that the prison wouldn't buy a pay-per-view, but they had cable. So he specifically asked not to be put on pay-per-view cards. He specifically asked to stay on cable so that his dad could watch his fights.
No way.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And his dad just got out of prison recently.
Just got out of prison in February.
So he's like, okay, now put me on pay-per-view.
Okay, now do you
But guys, I'm into the storyline, so I know that that's this is where you'd wish you had the family, or you wish you'd had some Zoom to show his dad, because it's got to be powerful. I mean, how old is Usman? Is it on here? How old he is?
He's like early 30s.
Early 30s. So 10, 15 years is half your life that your father's been in prison. I think it was for like healthcare fraud or something like that, non-violent. But this is a big deal for him. So however, that could be a big deal, and that could be very much a pressure on him. So there's a lot. I love the storylines, with the Nigerian Nightmare and Street Jesus here.
In case I do drop off, who are each are each of you picking? I'm kind of curious before I leave.
I'm going Usman.
Usman.
George.
Masvidal.
Oh.
Tanisha.
Usman.
Oh,
Breaking the tie. I think Usman wins also.
Mhm.
I'm just like, this will be fun. I don't know if you guys watch any LFA, like it's fighting League, that's on tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys aren't paying enough attention to my MMA math, by the way. I just want to say that.
Oh, yeah. By the
What
way, it's incredible. You have
Hey, what about the Usman might get to beat 2 Trump supporters right in a row?
That's
That
what I'm
could be-
saying. 2-0 versus MAGA. I'm on. it.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that.
Is Masvidal MAGA?
Oh,
He's been wearing it. Yeah, he's a Trump
Oh,
supporter
really?
also.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Oh.
That's like a whole other like contextual, cultural thing. Just Cubans in Miami in general are massive.
Oh,
conservative.
That is very,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's been funny is that everyone's been incredibly surprised because he's Latino, but they're not. But they're
No.
completely ignoring that context.
Yeah.
yeah.
Very true. No, I love your MMA math. Did you have because I was trying to think of someone, if you missed anyone that I wanted to see in there, but I think you got everyone to make this puzzle piece work, Joe.
Maybe.
We'll see. And if it all
Maybe.
happens, I have this recorded. So
Okay, great. Yeah, that'd be amazing. That'd be incredible. But I mean, in the meantime, Kamaru Usman has to get beaten, and I think it's a tall order for sure. I don't think it's an easy fight. I mean, I understand why he's why Jorge's the underdog. I mean, he should absolutely be the underdog. I also think, like a lot of the fights on this card, it's a good time to be betting on underdogs because there's these are all going to be these are all potentially very close fights, that could easily be upsets. So,
And we don't know how the fighters
little
perform.
parlay action. Say what now?
It's such a weird context. You really don't know how, if it's a huge underdog could upset someone because they don't perform well.
yeah.
Right, exactly. Because you're on the other side of the world during a pandemic, fighting at the first thing in the
Yeah.
morning.
Your math still might work with Masvidal losing, because if he puts in a good performance but loses a decision, then they still do the Nate fight, and then if he beats Nate again, they could still do the Conor fight. Like there's still that, you could still get that run without the belts involved.
I actually agree.
True.
Right. He has nothing to lose in this.
He has nothing to
Yeah.
lose. Nothing to lose.
It might even free him up more if he doesn't have the belt, in terms of the UFC just going with weird matchups but exciting ones.
Right. Yeah.
Right. He's
And
gonna
then,
get props just for even taking this, and he's already soliciting The Rock to take his private jet since they have like another jet, bro. Like, come on, like he's already winning in that regard. He has nothing.
right. Yeah.
Well, I have some questions. Do we know Anik is play-by-play. Do we know who the colors are?
I know one guy couldn't make. Oh no, Felder's not coming because he was in contact with someone with COVID. So I know Bisping is there too. So
yeah,
I think,
Bisping's there. Felder got
Cruz
pushed
there?
out.
Is
He is
Cruz
trained.
there?
Chris.
It's
Oh,
Anik
Dominic Cruz.
and Dominic Cruz.
mhm.
I think that's who it is.
And then, do we have a fight coming up this Wednesday again? Are they doing
Yeah, Qatar Ige.
guitar? Okay, and then is Whitaker Till on that card, or is that
That's
Saturday?
in 2 weekends.
It's hard to keep track. And I'll be honest, I go fight by fight because I'm that I just don't want to. I don't want to mess with the MMA gods, Joe.
Right, exactly. You do know that they get fickle when you start messing around and predicting too early.
What have you just done? I'm gonna light candles and maybe sacrifice some plants or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, well, it's almost 7, and
Okay.
I really appreciate everything. I think we got some bets going here. I know I'm going to be on Twitter tomorrow. I
Killer.
love this part, and Joe, you're going to inspire me. So I'm going to ask you first. What are you preparing for your fight meal?
Oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, I kind of had a wipeout. I got this new grill for my birthday back in June, and I was doing some good stuff with it. And then last week, it's a long story, but I kind of screwed up my 4th of July barbecue. So I might try to do some try to redeem myself with a better grill of some kind. I don't know what it would be. I've got a little bit of. I could make some hamburgers. I also have some Italian sausage that might be delicious on the grill. So we'll see what I got. I got some. I don't really have a lot of veggies right now to put on there. I've got like a cook up with like a farm CSA, you know, where every week I go pick up a bag of produce. And this week I didn't get any, I didn't get a bunch of squash like I got last week. I love to grill the squash on the grill. That's really yummy. But so it might just be meat only grilling this weekend, which is, I'll take it. It's kind of my preferred thing to grill, frankly.
What was with the grill?
It's a long story, but it's like like one of those Kamado style grills that like it's made of like ceramic and it's got like cast iron and it holds this heat really well. So half the time when I jam it full of charcoal, it doesn't even use all the charcoal. So this time I sort of really minimized how much charcoal I was using, but I was also doing this longer cook of these like chicken drumsticks. And so by the time I got about halfway done with those chicken drumsticks, suddenly my fire was out and it was just a nightmare. So so I'm trying to learn better about how to do like a longer cook versus a shorter one. And there's a learning curve because I've never had this style of grill because it's kind of complicated, but soon I'm going to get a stone for it and I'll be able to like crank it up to like 700 degrees worth of charcoal and then like cook pizzas in it.
So do your pizzas. I grill my own pizzas, man. Just make sure you par bake the crust. Get your crust ready.
Like in the oven at home? Like in the oven first?
I actually do mine. I do a little 12-inch round, and
Okay.
I've got a Breville countertop oven that's got convection.
Okay.
And I par bake about a third of the way through. I pull it and then put it on the stone on the grill.
Killer.
I eat a pretty much plant-based diet. Just because that's where I'm at this point in life.
Right.
Unfortunately. So, but yeah, I do it that way, man. And it is pizza on the grill is something fantastic.
All right. Thanks for the tip.
I want to watch the Scott and Joe cooking show now.
I know.
Yeah, let's go. So
He's bringing
I have one subscriber.
That's bringing the veggies.
We got it.
So
You're right.
Tanisha, let's ask the real questions. Tanisha, let's talk about your T-shirt because I am a child of '90s rap. I had 9 on the other day. You know, my girlfriend didn't, or my fiance at this point didn't know who it was. So about a week ago, we went and picked up her new car, and so I'm driving it. She's playing with the radio, or whatever, and she goes, "Oh, do you know this song?" and puts it on. And I go, and it's Ice Cube, right? Today was a good day, and I start in with the lyrics. I'm like, what are you asking me? Like, do I know this song? I live this song. I am this song. So yeah. So tell me, '90s rap, Tanisha. What am I putting on the car ride tomorrow?
Oh God, you know, you're gonna have to. It depends. You know, I think if you want to go female, you know, I'm always down for some yo-yo. I am always.
Okay.
You know, like Salt and Pepper. I mean, Lady of Rage was my go-to karaoke song for the longest time. The one from Above the Rim, the Afro jam.
So I love the Above the Rim soundtrack. Love Juice. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Outkast is always a good favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And you know,
absolutely.
I think the best collaboration of all music is Bone Thugs and Notorious B.I.G. Like that like the Notorious Thug song is like my absolute jam. And
nice.
Yeah, that's always good. And just like with your Ice Cube story, I was in the car with a friend and he had his nephew in there too. And Ice Cube came on and we were rapping it all. And he was like, who is this? And this is like a 14-year-old kid. We were like, dude, like this is Ice Cube. And they're like, oh, the guy from those movies.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
Like,
Oh
it's
no.
like the guy from Barbershop and like those family movies. Like, I just looked at my friend and I was like, you doing your nephew wrong. Like this is talk to your sister because this is unacceptable. Parents.
She puts it on YouTube and puts it on the screen. She goes, do you know this? And I go, just waking up in the morning. Gotta thank God. I don't know, but today seems kind of, and she's like, oh my God, I gotta know better. I gotta know better with you. So
And I like some of the even the campier stuff. Like I was born in '83, right? So 90s rap, that was like my big brother, like whatever he loved, I loved. So I even like the campy stuff, right? The first CD I ever bought out of my own money, the first compact disc I bought was Criss Cross. Like that.
Nice. Okay.
The first one I ever bought. Like cassettes, I had MC Hammer, Funky Headhunter. Like I had the Yo-Yo, I had Coolio. Gangsta's Paradise is also on my karaoke playlist. Like if I had to, because Dangerous Minds, that one with what's her name?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I love that soundtrack too.
I remember getting caught with my Eazy-E tape.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like all the dirty, like the adult rap in the 90s when I was a kid, like I had to smuggle that cassette, and like listen, with my brother, like when our parents weren't around or something, because just the age gap and that difference. But when I Get Around came out, I was rapping that stuff when I was in, like the 6th, 7th grade at that point when it came
Absolutely.
out. Because Digital Underground.
Love Digital Underground. Hell yeah.
Like, yeah, they were like a rap wrestling group to me. I was like, dude, this guy's got a hat on. It's like I just thought they were amazing.
Yeah, then you got Tupac showing up in that mix every once in a while, and it's
absolutely.
Like,
so when
getting caught with Eazy-E, man, it was the dirtiest. It was terrible, and I got caught with that. And I remember, I have that feeling now. You brought it back. It's so bad. Oh God, but I still love any of that old NWA, Eazy-E, and I managed to never commit any of those crimes, which is great. So I wasn't influenced at all, but I love the music. I love the music.
It's so fun. It's
so much fun.
I think I had the corniest one because I had the Fat Boys.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There you go.
I've seen the movie, and I so. And Joe, you're right next to Tanisha in my Zoom, so you could be crisscross, right?
We'll be crisscross.
I just need to put your overalls on backwards, and then
I know. I'll put my overalls on backwards. Crisscross is in effect.
Yes, we're having.
My 90s rap is I pretty much every summer. I haven't done it this summer because I haven't been driving anywhere. But usually at some point I'm driving around in the summertime and I've got to put in the Chronic and listen to the Chronic while I'm driving around. And then I end up just leaving it in for like the rest of the summer because it's so good. And it doesn't matter. Whenever I get back in the car and it comes on again, it's just, it always, whatever it's playing, it's like, that's too good. I can't change this.
Yeah, between that, Doggy Style, I mean, all the kind of mid-90s, West Coast stuff is so great.
Oh my God, it's so summertime. I mean, to me, that album is just.
Because then the concept stuff too of like Diggable Planets, like that was all
Diggable. Oh man,
Planets. Like I don't know if that's the debate of hip hop and rap, but the conscious rap, the Diggable Planets, I absolutely love. That was awesome.
Well, if you haven't heard RTJ's new album, it's fantastic. Those guys are amazing. So Run the Jewels. Yeah, just old school guys, but they've been around forever. But they just released a new album. It's awesome. So check it out.
We need this is obviously put a pin in it about 90s rap. I think we need to see more walkout songs incorporating this.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
Because I mean, the last fight I was going ape shit because what's his name came out to Mortal Kombat, and so I was like on the couch, like like that one song. Who was that? What was the last fight? The last card on TV?
Apex Hooker versus Poirier.
And the fight before
was
that.
it Blades who came out to that?
Yes, it was Curtis Blades.
Yeah. Oh, and the PTSD of Walt Harris. God bless him, what he's been through. But
Mhm.
man, they replay that so many times. I thought, like, I think Tanisha wrote on Twitter, like, I can't take any more.
Yeah, like I'm done. Like quit it.
Oh
Like, it's
God, I
too
know,
much.
I know, so sad. To
Mhm.
get off that, all right, what are you eating, Tanisha? Are you gonna order
You know,
it?
I thought of you because when I was unpacking boxes, I found my George Foreman grill.
Oh,
All right.
I used it to like cook up like the
fire that up.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, but I think I'm actually because it's 112 here.
Right.
I'm gonna do something cold, like make a nice summer salad. So I got some. I'm
Oh,
gonna grill some shrimp and put it over a bed of greens and stuff, and have just kind of like a salad.
oh, that sounds so good.
Good.
Yeah, with cranberries and pecans and
Oh.
just summer salad it up and make my own kind of balsamic raspberry vinaigrette and just munch on that. And got some edamame because that's like my new favorite snack.
Yeah, love
I-
edamame.
Eat that whole bag and just sit there watching fights.
Plus, if you have a
Sounds
salad, I
good.
feel like you can have a drink because you like,
Mhm.
yeah.
I don't want anything heavy or hot right now.
yeah. So, Scott, are you doing the pizza or?
So, well, I've got a guys fishing trip coming up, so I kind of got back on the heavy diet a little bit. So I want to be under 170 when I hit it. So I'm doing my own Masvidal impression, but not quite as extreme. So I've got a salad. I've actually got a strawberry balsamic vinaigrette that I put together.
Ah,
Super simple, but really good ingredients, and we've got good strawberries here right now. So been using that for a few days. So just all clean stuff right now. So
you're saying that because you said you had some fun with food. We both were
mhm.
talking. So do you ever stray? Or are you strict, like only plant-based?
Oh, 100% stray. Yeah, it's the only thing that keeps me on the straight and narrow is I have to go off. I couldn't do like. Thank God it's only food that kind of ropes me in. But yeah, it's every once in a while we have a nice little cheat meal, but right now it's not that way. So
I
yeah.
understand. Sounds good. This is like a great meal that we're all putting together here. Atticus,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
There is a great little taco place, like buried in the back half of a gas station, about 15 minutes from my house. And it is like the best Mexican food I have had,
Oh,
not in Southern California. It is so
Nice.
good.
I know because Joe told me he was going to get tacos. And so I had it last time. I don't know. I think we either going to do like kebabs on the grill, or I might have to do the tacos again because it's like now a thing. I'm very much tradition kind of based person. So I may have to go back and get tacos as well. This was a joy, you guys, so much. I love to see your faces. This is so fun.
Good to see y'all.
I love these casual check-ins. We got to just chop it up more with this stuff.
I know. So we have so much more we could have gotten to. So I'll be in touch, down the line. We got to catch up again. All right. And overthink fights. I love it.
Yeah.
Take care.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
y'all.
everybody.
Deuces.
Good to see y'all.
Bye, everyone.